If there's anything in the world that I don't want to hear about is an A++ economy. Listen, I think there are things that President Trump can cheer. I think there are successes in this just start of his second term. I absolutely believe that I'm better off with Donald Trump than Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whoever was actually running the country any day of the week and twice on Sunday. But do not sit there in Pennsylvania and say, what are you talking about? Everything's just great. It's not just great. It's not even great. My gosh, it's barely even just. Tony Katz Today. Good to be with you. Let me bring in Ed Morrissey right there from hotair.com. He's got all the good stories. And of course, we'll get to what's happening in your Texas where the map is upheld and Jasmine Crockett is the future. The president goes to Pennsylvania, Ed. And affordability is now a hoax. He has said that before. And this economy is going great. That's exactly what we were told by the Democrats regarding transitory inflation and that this is the greatest economy anybody's ever seen. How can you not recognize it? You dum-dum. What is President Trump doing?
He's falling into the same trap that practically every other president falls into, which is trying to jolly up people who are living the economy day to day. And this is the thing. You can spin lots of things. You can even spin the economy to a certain amount. Some of the macroeconomic stuff, you can kind of spin that. But what you can't spin is what people feel when they go to the grocery store, when they go to get a loan, when they, trying to buy a home or trying to buy a car, dealing with the car payments, insurance payments, and that sort of thing. Economy, we participate in the economy every day. It is very difficult to gaslight people for very long, at least, about the economy. And this is the trap that Joe Biden fell into. It's the same trap that George Bush fell into. Barack Obama did something similar, and Obama and Biden said the same thing that Donald Trump is saying right now, which is that, well, my predecessor screwed this up so badly that it's going to take us a while to fix things. This is not an unusual message to send out. I think Trump is trying to rely on his personal charisma, which he has plenty of, to try to sell this. And look, I think it's going to have at least an impact because you have to have some sort of answer to what's happening. But the real answer to this is probably the message I just said, only delivered a little bit more honestly. We are changing a lot of things. In the long run, you are going to be better off with it. In the short run, we're going to have some pain. This is Reagan. You can go back to Reagan in his first term. The first 2 years were tough. And the
absolute message. I don't mean to interrupt you, Ed, but I so agree with this, and I have discussed it here. This is so the message. You can get people to be on your side if you tell them what's actually happening. You cannot make believe that things are good when they are not. Now, this was President Trump from that rally in Pennsylvania.
And with our historic tariffs, steel production is roaring back. We're building steel mills all over the country, and U.S. Steel is coming back at a level never thought possible before. And I was up. And I was up here and with the workers and with Selena. Do you know Selena? Does everybody know? And with some other people. We were up with some great people. And we spent the whole day, and they were determining whether or not they want to make which one of the deals. I went to the workers. I said, which one do you like? We picked the right one. As I said before, billions of dollars they're spending, and the steel workers are doing phenomenally better.
I think it's good, Ed, to talk about steel. I think it's fine to discuss the idea of strength in our economy. These are things to highlight. And then, as if turning on a dime, he gets into the conversation of dolls.
I think you're going to do better than you've ever done before. You were losing all of your steel. If we didn't have tariffs, you would have no steel. We wouldn't have one steel mill anywhere in the United States. And that would be really bad for, Scott, national security. The one thing you need steel. You can give up certain products. You can give up pencils. That's under the China policy. Every child can get 37 pencils. They only need one or two. They don't need that many. But you always need You always need steel. You don't need $37 for your daughter. 2 or 3 is nice, but you don't need $37.
He has made this argument before, Ed Morrissey.
Yeah.
This argument is horrifically bad. I don't know who is advising him, but fire that person. This does not resonate. It resonates zero with the American public.
Well, I mean, it's sort of a Malaise speech reference. For those who remember the Malaise speech from Jimmy Carter, which is you don't need all this stuff. You don't really need all this income. You don't need to warm your house to 78 degrees. We're all going to have to live within our means. Not bad personal advice, frankly, but politically speaking, just see how well that worked out for Jimmy Carter. It's not the point that your daughter doesn't need $37. It's that you don't want the government telling you that your daughter only needs 2 or 3 in order to be happy. That's not the government's role. The government's role is to create an economy where you can compete and you can succeed, and then you can decide how many dolls your daughter needs. This type of thing it's a trap. It's reactive, right? The doll thing was reactive to something that happened a few months back about people complaining about the tariffs impacting the price of toys for kids, right? And you have to put these things in better perspective. That's what you're there to do. You don't want to react to every single line item. What you want to say is, look, we're working through this. We want to see more of those dolls produced in the United States. We want to see fair trade so that whatever you're producing here in the United States gets the proper price where we're buying the dolls from. And then everybody can have as many dolls as they want. That's the type of message that you need. That's not really Trump's style. And so I'm not surprised to see him sort of reacting rather than recrafting the argument. But that's what really needs to happen.
This is the second big mystery. Jeffrey Epstein was the first. Shocking, in my view, talking to Ed Morrissey right now of hotair.com. This is a ridiculous misread. And he's smarter than this. He's more capable than this. So somewhere, somehow, someone said, this is the message we're crafting. And the question before us is why? Why this?
I think that first off, if you're listening to that, that's Donald Trump riffing, right? So I don't even think it's somebody in the White House that wrote the line about the dolls. I think that that's just Donald Trump riffing. That's Donald Trump going off script. He likes to do that a lot. He's usually pretty good at it. In this case, though, it's not serving him well. He needs to be a lot more focused on what this economic message is going to be. I will say also this: it's early days for this new economic campaign that they're launching. And it's like doing stand-up, right? You go out, you work a few clubs.
Keep going.
You work a few clubs, you refine the material, you find out what works, you find out what doesn't, and you get better as you go along. I'm not terribly concerned at this point. If that message is what keeps going, though, it's going to be the Malaise speech all over again. It is not going to work out well for Republicans. They need to sharpen this thing up an awful lot.
I think that is very true, that they're working out the language and the comparison to somebody, on the circuit working out their routine and getting their tight 10. I think that is accurate. It's that it shouldn't be this hard.
Right.
That's the problem. And they do have a lot they can cheer on. They do have a lot of economic stuff that they can engage with. Certainly they have stuff on domestic policy with the border that they can cheer. Certainly they can talk about peace plans that have been created, whether they're hold or not is inconsequential to them, that they're going to be able to talk about going into the midterms. But this economic conversation can be possibly seen in what took place in Miami, where after 30 years of Republicans being in charge, they just elected a Democrat for mayor last night. Not only a Democrat, somebody who was an Hispanic, which is interesting. They elected a Democrat in We Hate Castro, Miami. Is this an economic conversation, or is this something else that's Miami focused that we don't know about?
Might be a DeSantis conversation. I mean, DeSantis has dominated Florida politics too. And it might be a DeSantis conversation. I wasn't really tied in too much to what was going on in Miami, but there's a lot of different things that happens in local elections. Sometimes local elections are just local too. Miami is part of Miami-Dade County, which has up until DeSantis came along, had been pretty heavily Democratic. It was not necessarily, I know that the city of Miami was electing Republicans, but that was a pretty blue area until DeSantis came along. So I'm not necessarily sure that this is some sort of reversion against type at this point in time. I would be concerned about it, though, if I was the White House, and especially because the guy that she was running against, and whose name I don't even recall, was apparently a guy who was, Foursquare Trump guy, making the Trump argument. So yeah, maybe it is economics. It could be economics. I think that they've slipped on the economic message because they've been so focused on foreign policy. They're not going to go out in the campaign trail for the next year and talk about foreign policy, though. They're going to be talking about economics, because you don't win midterm elections on foreign policy. You don't win presidential elections on foreign policy, even though you should. That's not usually what wins presidential elections. It's the economy, stupid. It's what Carville said 30 years ago.
So we both agree with that. I'm saying that there are things that Republicans can say, look what we've done, and they can certainly talk about the southern border as a success. And if you vote for these other people, your kids are going to die from fentanyl, right? It's going to be one of those kinds of.
Well, crime would certainly be a good argument in local elections, right? And maybe they didn't emphasize the crime angle enough. Again, I'm not familiar enough with what took place in that campaign.
I'm talking about
in general, though.
Yeah.
But I mean, the crime angle is also an economic angle. This is what you have to do. You have to tie all these things back to the economy, right? If you have rampant crime in the streets, people are not going to go out shopping. You're not going to have a healthy economy in your local community, and you're going to suffer from that. So this is what we're doing, and how this is helping the economy. We're closing the southern border, and this is how it's going to help your economy. We're going to have more jobs for Americans. We're going to have housing. We're going to take the pressure off of housing by having the illegal aliens migrate back out, and that's going to lower rents. In fact, that's already happening. That's one win that they can actually talk about. They need to start talking more about that, though, and that they need to have sort of the grand economic theory of everything that they're doing, and tie everything back to economic results for average Americans at the kitchen table. And they can do that, but they have to tighten up the message, and they have to get a lot better at it.
Talking to Ed Morrissey of hotair.com. So that's something Republicans have to do, something we've discussed here. But it seems that all Democrats have to do is scream Trump bad. And in your beautiful Texas, where the new maps of redistricting were upheld basically by the Supreme Court, in walks the future Senator Jasmine Crockett to save Texans from themselves. I mean, it really is a kind of a fascinating story where you see that Colin Allred, who's been running for office for 4 or 5 years now, lost to Ted Cruz. He's a Democrat, decides he's going to run against John Cornyn or whoever is going to be the Republican nominee for the Senate. Next thing you know, there's redistricting. And then he decides Jasmine Crockett's getting in the race. She's, I don't know, too big, too powerful, too popular, whatever it is. I'll step out and run for Congress in the 3rd. And now here comes the voice of the Democratic Party, Jasmine Crockett, to save the day. I ask you right now, Ed Morrissey, how much fun is this race going to be?
It's going to be so much fun. This is almost my happy spot. The only thing is that I'm a little nervous. I don't want to jinx it and have her actually end up winning, but come on, it's Texas. She's not going to win a statewide election here in Texas. I don't even know what Democrats are thinking by doing this. They should be finding somebody who is somewhat to the right of Colin Allred. Colin Allred was trying to run as a centrist. His record just cut against it. Beto O'Rourke tried to run as a centrist when he ran against Ted Cruz in 2018, and he came within 4 points or so. And that was with a lot of national money coming in, painting him as a centrist. The whole, Fran Lebowitz, photo shoot, or Annie Leibovitz, photo shoot, and that sort of thing. You can't dress up Jasmine Crockett as anything other than a radical, and this is going to be a disaster for Democrats. In fact, the Washington Post yesterday read this whole Dems in disarray in Texas article analysis, predicating on the fact that, sort of like, what are they thinking? What are Democrats thinking in Texas, based on clearing the field for Jasmine Crockett? And we're going to have a lot of fun with this. the one downside is this is that Republicans are going to have a really brutal primary here between John Cornyn, Ken Paxton, and now Wesley Hunt has gotten in the race, and Wesley Hunt is pretty well liked, right? Might not be a bad candidate, right? And he's jumping in. He's already got 20% in polls right now, so it should be interesting.
Can I throw just a little bit of betting out there? I'm willing to put a couple bucks on this. I think Wesley Hunt is more favorable, more palatable, more attractive to Texas voters than Ken Paxton. I think they like the fight of Ken Paxton, but they don't like the fight of Ken Paxton. I think he rubs everybody the wrong way, even if he gets a good result. They'd rather have Wesley Hunt.
I think they like the fight of Ken Paxton. They don't like the baggage of Ken Paxton, and that's the problem. And they don't like John Cornyn much after that vote on gun control and the fact that he's been part of the leadership clique now for the Senate GOP, and Texans are pretty unhappy with that. I am like 6 of one, half dozen of another. I don't care who it is. It's fine. I'll vote for that person for Senate. But some people have very strong opinions about this. I actually think Wesley Hunt might be the best choice, just as you said. You get a change, but you get somebody who's very rational, very clear, really good on his feet, doesn't rub people the wrong way, very charismatic kind of guy. But I think any of those three would beat Jasmine Crockett without much trouble. Maybe Ken Paxton might be the weakest, but that's relative to the question. In Texas, we have the primary in March. So we're going to have this thing decided in March, and you got 8 months then, or 7.5 months until you get to the general election. Things, all the divisions will get cleared up. And especially if Jasmine Crockett ends up being the nominee, you're going to see the party unite around that. And even if people don't like John Cornyn or Ken Paxton or Wesley Hunt, they're going to turn out in Texas just to make sure that Jasmine Crockett doesn't get elected to the Senate.